Good evening and welcome to Run and Become. I'm Barry Crane, in-store physiotherapist. This is all a little bit strange. Hopefully you've got the presentation I think Sadie was sent through earlier. We normally do marathon chat, not this time of year, but usually February, March before people are running the marathon. So with the virtual chats going on, I thought I would look on the marathon planning and preparation. Obviously, unlimited plans online. Personally, I've constructed more plans for marathons, triathlons for patients, families and friends over the past 20 years. And, you know, a lot of that's been for myself, but there's been lots of learning from that as well. So this year with No London Marathon, we've got the virtual option, and some people might be looking to run their first virtual marathon, or they might be attempting another challenge. Personally, I was very lucky to be involved in a relay channel swim and learned loads from that in terms of the training required. But I've also learned loads about preparation through lockdown. So working Chelsea and Westminster Hospital and privately, I've had a lot of interaction with ACL patients, either post-surgery, pre-surgery, in terms of their progression and planning. And really the big thing I've noticed is how poor a lot of these patients' preparation's been, poor goal setting, and then basically poor outcomes. So you've got patients 18 to 12 months post-surgery still struggling. So as a result, kind of decided tonight to talk more about preparation. And there's a lot of information in the presentation about that. Basically, from my thinking is, are we generally getting worse at preparing, worse at planning? Are we getting lazier? Do we rely more on technology? Basically thinking that the gimmicks are there to help us get round something as tough as a marathon, or something as tough as a 5K, you know, or even getting back to running, which is, you know, a big difficulty for a lot of people. So what I looked at to see, was there evidence, you know, in terms of are we getting worse in terms of our preparation? And there was a really good study, which is part of the presentation here, looking at how runners are generally getting slower. You know, so constructed by two runners who are also statisticians, and looking at over 30 million results from almost 30,000 different races, looking at your major long distance events, marathon, half marathon, 5K, 10K, and then linking that, you know, with their study being American based, but we all know what's happening in America is happening in all Western civilizations. And personally, having gone running marathons in America, it's very little difference on the results there to here. So the key difference is that the trend from where they were looking for in the last 20 years is that the runners are getting slower. Looked on loads and loads of data on this, omitted anyone who didn't finish. So you're actually taking out a proportion of, you know, the very poorly prepared. But then the evidence was that everyone's getting slower, and it's only really the top elite runners who are getting faster. You know, so we see that from the likes of Kipchoge running his sub 2-hour marathon. And also we see from these results that there's more women running endurance events, which is basically due to fairer participation, and that women aren't having the effect on slowing the time down that some people would create as one of the myths. It's generally we're all getting slower, and we're getting slower across all the percentiles. So it's not just the slower runner getting slow, everyone's getting slower. You know, and with the slowdown, male runners are getting slower, you know, proportionally than women. But in terms of genetics, men have that genetic advantage, that they are more predisposed to run distances. from a genetic point of view. And I've put links in the presentation if people want to look into that further. And there's a lot of interesting online information. Also, big note from that study is that women are actually far smarter than men, which we knew, but as a result, also much better at their pacing, which is very important when we look at our preparation, which we'll discuss a little bit further. Really feel free to go through that. I've tried to summarise that study as best possible, and then look to see, what we work on from that. Is it dangerous for some people to be running marathons? Probably is. It's not linked to the older age group running, which is obviously a big advantage. In that study, looked at the average age is over the 20 years increased by 4 years. So from 37 of a mean age, it's now 41. So it's good that people are getting involved, but it doesn't mean that they're affecting how we run slower. The study looked on, the link of obesity with these runners and kind of generally poorer health. So we're looking at if people aren't healthy enough, should they be taking on certain challenges? So kind of from the presentation, if I turn on the side, we're kind of looking at, that's kind of the equivalent of swimming into a thunderstorm, which can be quite good fun, but can also be dangerous. So conclusions from that study was average runner is getting slower, and that's across gender and distance, not due to female participation, not due to people who run slowly, and it's not due to people who walk, and it's linked to signs of poor health, but we can't say that for sure. So looking on to what I was going to discuss a bit further in terms of preparation is picking the right event, or picking the right challenge for you. We don't all need to run a marathon. Most of us can if we want to, but it's setting the goals to progress towards that. So I talk to lots of patients when they first get into running or they get back to running. Should you be looking at first setting a 5K, or even smaller, analysing your running so you get back running well. Looking at the different running coaches. We've got Balavan here, and there's no set perfect pattern of running. There's lots of apps online. There's lots of ways to look at your cadence from a physiotherapy point of view. There's lots of ways to prevent injury in terms of running, but nothing's a perfect science. And just thinking again, that everything is possible, but you need to build up to it. So from a physiotherapy point of view, we were always taught about SMART goals, basically being specific, measurable, achievable, reasonable, time-scaled. So that's a good basis to start from. But then it doesn't include all the little factors that I probably want to touch on tonight. There's so many aspects that can improve your preparation, not just for running, but for all sorts of exercise and events. And that preparation helps reduce the risk of injury. As the often mentioned 7 Ps linked to the British Army. Again, it just talks about poor planning and preparation. I don't know if I got a lot out of that, to be honest. So what I moved on to was looking at specific abbreviation of preparation. So trying to touch on areas, and I won't cover everything tonight. There's loads of preparation you can do yourself. Some of it's tedious, but it makes you able to enjoy the things you enjoy because, as the presentation touches on, the biggest thing you get from exercise is the mental health benefits. So we all want to do the exercise we enjoy, but sometimes we need to do tedious things to prepare for that. And that's what we want to look at tonight. So marathon, couch to 5K. I think a lot of people have watched Andy Murray's return to tennis. From a physiotherapy point of view, that's very, very interesting. But Andy Murray's very lucky. He's got a lot of money, a lot of backing. He's got an array of health professionals, coaches, all supporting him. Sometimes you're just on your own, or you come to see a physio for a one-off appointment and a bit of advice. I'm probably tonight going to try and make you aware of other areas to look at, and all the little things you can work on to prevent those injuries. Because once we get injured, that affects your mental health, and you go in a negative cycle. And it's kind of, preparing for whatever you're doing, not just exercise, it's looking at that bigger picture. And so, yeah, the Andy Murray documentary is very interesting, but it's probably not real life for most of us. But like I say, with the ACL population, I've spoken to maybe 50 people the last 6 months who are looking to get back to tennis. And, massive credit to Andy Murray. But it's sometimes a lot more difficult for the amateur to get back to sport than it is for the professional, because they don't have the support, and from coming working in sport, some sports stars are very lucky, but his injury return was incredible, and hopefully he continues that. So thinking about the preparation, I looked at the P first, and big P in physiotherapy is looking at problem lists, and that's not from a negative point of view. It's just from targeting where you're weak. Again, it's very, very individual, and you can use your network of family and friends, coaches, just the same way as Andy Murray or any other elite sportsman, sportswoman would do, sports teams. We've got that technological advantage nowadays where we can all film each other. When I first started working in London, we worked out of a movement laboratory. There's very few of them now. You don't need them. You've got on your own phone as good a video as anyone can do in a movement laboratory. You can link to apps to look at your cadence, your running stride. So a big one I suggest to people is at the end of a run, get someone to video you. But even when people are starting, looking at more on your intervals, your last interval will regularly be slower, but it's things in your technique that you can pick up yourself before you even look at a running coach, before you look at a physio. So problem lists are key, and they're not negative. They're the way you improve. So if you think about the problem list, it helps to prevent injury, and elite athletes are using injury prevention to improve performance. So really vitally important. In all sports, decathlons, one area, worked with a lot of decathletes, and super impressive how they manage 10 disciplines. But from one good friend, it's talking about working on their weak areas. What we tend to do when we go to the gym or we go exercising is we work on what we're good at, because that's what you enjoy. But then you can build in those muscle imbalances, you can have joint overload, and you cause the repetitive strain injury. So most injuries aren't one-off traumas. Most are doing a little thing badly again and again. And that's looking at things like just your overpronation. We'll go on and talk about the little effects that footwear can have to help. But that overpronation links in with genu valgus at your knee, lack of control at your hips. All these little things build in. So if you can work on to improve, then you improve performance, you prevent injury. Next one on the preparation is R, and I've used R for recovery, which is vitally important for us all. So massive evidence for the importance of sleep. Again, your top elite athletes have got sleep doctors, Team Sky using the same mattress wherever they go. But if you don't sleep well, you're not ready for exercise the next day. And I'll speak to a lot of patients just now and discuss the importance of rest before exercise. Some people are really tired at the end of the day. All the technology we've got nowadays, Zoom calls, interfaces can make people tired. Go and have a sleep before you exercise. You've got that option. Best athletes I've ever met, they all sleep like champions. So sleep's vital. And it's doing the right things in terms of your recovery, which help that. You've got massage, manual therapy. You don't always need to pay for massage. All the foam rollers just behind me in the shop there. Trigger balls. All these little races. When you're sitting working at your computer during the day, if that feels tight, say to everyone, shove your fingers in, release that off. IT band, everyone's got a tight IT band. You need to do that foam roller every day. You don't need to do it for 20 minutes. You need to do it a couple of minutes. IT band, quad, hamstring, calf, done. And especially when you're building up your training further. Big one I've learned more about this year is cold showers. So when you're preparing for open water swimming, you need to be used to the cold. So January I started doing cold showers. I might do it forever. Really enjoy it. Flushes the toxins out. Big physiological evidence after you've exercised. You've opened your capillaries. You want to shut your capillaries down. You see, again, your professional athletes doing ice baths. All the Premier League football clubs have got cryo chambers. All the cryo chambers in Harley Street. No point going into a cryo chamber off the street cold. Absolutely pointless. Got loads of money, fine. Go and do it. But when you've exercised, the medical evidence is vasoconstriction. So vasodilation is when you've exercised, you're sweating, you're warm, all your capillaries are open. You want to shut those capillaries down after you've exercised. So for me, cold showers, great way of doing that. Also, there's evidence for depression. Cold showers to improve your mood. Got a very good friend in Denmark who targets that with improvements in his mental health. And I saw that. Saw him 6 months previously. Bad place when he came to visit London, probably drinking too much, not exercising, bad diet. Came 6 months later and he was a different guy. And I asked him about all these things, less alcohol, better diet, exercise. And he said, no, cold showers. So cold showers improved his mood. So yeah, that's probably gone on there, but that's a recent one for me. Really, really important. Holidays is another one. You know, we're all working hard just now. People are trying to, you know, run their own businesses, changing jobs, but we all need to get a break. You know, there's less holidays abroad, but we need to get a break. We need to switch off from work as well. And when you have those holidays, you maybe have a bit of a holiday from exercise as well. You know, you don't keep flogging yourself. End of a season, you know, end the hard training stint, give your body a break. Big evidence for that. But, you know, there's more injury prevention tips on there. Warm up, cool down, working on core areas. You know, nothing's 100% evidence-based. But, you know, big thing is listening to your own body and knowing your own body. So it's really been individual about all these areas. So, you know, have a look in the presentation. There's a lot of recent learning there for me. You know, what, like I say, warm up, cool down. Very important. But you being in charge, and you can be cheating yourself, you know, if you think I'm not pushing myself hard enough. But you're almost being worse when you push yourself too hard, you know, because that's when you'll get the big injury. And, you know, it just takes a long time to recover when you get these serious injuries. You know, so you look at something like an ACL, you know, talking about that big cohort I've seen in the last 6 months. You tear your ACL, that's a minimum year rehab. So it's something to think about to prevent injuries rather than push through them. Really important. On to E, we're looking at equipment. All the footwear through here, super important. Different clothing, specific to different sports, different events, different distances, different surfaces. And I put in there as well the mental equipment. You know, other P I'll go on to next after this is placebo. You've got to be happy what you're exercising in. You know, coming through every year, we get more technological improvements in the equipment, footwear, clothing. You know, so there's always big helps, but they're little helps. You know, I'll come on to that again in terms of whether you discuss marginal gains, but all the little bits help. And I wear better trainers now than I wore 20 years ago running my first marathon. So that's got to help to offload. You know, linked in with your technique as well. So looking at all the little bits that help you, you know, like I said to someone earlier, if we wore the super expensive trainers that Kipchoge wore, they wouldn't help us because we're not fit enough or strong enough. So it's like that study I've put on the presentation. You've got to get yourself into good conditioning for all these little things to help. So equipment's key for all of us, and mentally just helps you feel better. And that links on to the placebo aspect. Doing things for you might not help other people, but mentally, if you feel the enjoyment from it, you feel the belief. Like I say, it goes to the colour of your trainers, the colour of the clothes you wear. People have got lucky outfits for certain events. That all helps. All massively important. So placebo is huge in terms of our preparation. I put the next one in terms of aid, and that's thinking about doing good things as part of your training and preparation. So, if you run a big event, you do a big event, ask people to sponsor you. So many people write it off on tax anyway, and it feels good when you're doing your training, you're pushing hard, that you're actually going to be helping a charity that you care about. So pick something close to your heart. And if people don't want to sponsor you, that's fine. That's their decision. Aid also comes to helping friends. So taking friends who maybe aren't as fit to come and train with you. Get them to help. Volunteering for events, huge benefit from that. I know the shop here run a lot of running events, and they get the benefit back from seeing people enjoying their events. So to volunteer, to coach, to referee, they're massive targets to aim towards, and really, really beneficial. I've got a very good friend in Glasgow who struggles a lot with his mental health. And over the past month, he did the 25 press-ups in 25 days. And the change in him was phenomenal. From doing press-ups on his knees to doing full-length press-ups. And he seemed to be so much better in himself. So there's not a recipe to what you pick in terms of events, in terms of challenges. And like I say, I'll probably get a bit emotional, but Paul set up his own project and Come Walk in My Shoes, so taking friends who are struggling with mental health out walking. I think we all forget last week was Suicide Awareness Day. For my demographic, it's the biggest killer. The biggest help's exercise, and you can't make people exercise. They've got to find it themselves. So that helping people to exercise is the biggest advantage of my job. Being able to get people clear of injury or prevent injury, so they get those mental health benefits. So the aid and preparation, it might be the biggest one for me. So if you're doing something big, help get a charity, to benefit from it, but help other people through your exercise as well, because you develop expertise. You can help others by volunteering, coaching, like I say, refereeing. As I talk too much, my breathing starts to go, and I think about the next one on my list, which is respiration. So if we can't breathe properly, we can't exercise. And I'm not a specialist in respiratory physio, but I've got colleagues in the hospital who were, real stars through the COVID period, and they will be again, in terms of treating coronavirus patients with the respiratory expertise. But what I do know personally, having asthma, if I don't manage my asthma, I can't exercise at all. I've had asthma attacks. So I know better ways to improve my breathing. Big way for me, swimming. Swimming, you've got to measure your breathing. It's not like when you're running, you can just breathe the whole time. If you're swimming underwater, you need to only breathe at a certain time and become more efficient. But there's loads of other ways to improve your breathing. There's lots of, aerofit things, breathing through straws, meditation and yoga. It's got big evidence base for improving your breathing. Thinking about that respiration when you go into different climates, colder weather, warmer weather, they'll all affect your breathing. So think about that as part of your preparation. Breathing huge. We don't say to people all the time when they're doing exercise, if you're holding your breath, you're not supplying the oxygen to the muscles. So it's a massive skill, but it's something we can practice again. As I'm doing this preparation and talking too much, my breathing rate was up. But you look at someone like Emil Zatopek, used to talk about training holding his breath. So it's different to everyone again, and there's no exact evidence base, but thinking about your respiration and your breathing is vital, for improvement. Overriding it all, thinking about your attitude. You've got to enjoy what you're doing. They might have the tedious bits, but picking an exercise you enjoy. If you're not enjoying it, there's no point doing it. Looked at a study previously, I don't think I added to this, advocating that when runners smile, they run faster, and they get better results. So think about if you're doing any events, to smile, enjoy, look around. You get so many people running. I see them down the river every day, plodding, looking at the ground. It's a beautiful world out there. So look around. Enjoy the exercise you're doing. Take it in. Smile. When you're running past someone tomorrow cycling past, smile at them. It makes you feel better, and you enjoy your exercise more. So your attitude's key. And I think when we do physiotherapy, you become a part of a psychologist, because you're telling people they're doing well. This morning I'm on Zoom calls to patients in the hospital, because we're trying to keep the numbers down coming in, and you're telling them on Zoom how well they're doing. So that attitude's vital, for all of us. So it's thinking about the smiles when you are doing your training. And then we go into T, think about your specific focus in your training. Again, linking into your problem areas, looking at your genetics, simple aspect that men are stronger, women are more flexible. That's simple genetics. But then they go and work on where their strength is. So loads of men, really strong, keep going to the gym, keep lifting weights. Should they be doing more flexibility? Should they be doing more yoga? But not having to stop doing their weights. Similar women, should they be working on more strength? And it's just getting that awareness yourself, and it's building the confidence. Because when you've not done something, you don't have the confidence to do something different, but you can get that big benefit from it. As I've got a friend who's a heptathlete, and she's quite happy, going into the gym, into, what you term the guys' free weights area, because she's been there and done it. For some other ladies, that might be a bit intimidating. So it's finding your comfort zone, but you'll get benefits from putting yourself a little bit outside the comfort zone as well. I think, just now, a lot of people aren't comfortable going to the gym, and with that same friend, I've did a training session last week where we go outside, you do your chin-ups, your pull-ups, your press-ups. You don't need to go to the gym to work on strength. Strongest lower limb athletes I've ever worked with are ballet dancers, and they don't use any weights. They just work on functional strength. So there's no set focus, or no set recipe for how you get stronger, how you get more flexible. Guys don't need to go to yoga to get more flexible. They just need to work more on their mobility, pre-exercise. So it's all about warming up. You don't do static stretches before. Do your static stretches afterwards. And it takes a long time to improve. Flexibility and strength, it takes long time to build up. Simple physiology, strength change takes 4 to 6 weeks. So don't look at changes straight away. And then that links into the I, as we move towards the end of inspiration, thinking about your motivation, think about motivating and inspiring others. And you don't realise you're doing it. You don't need to be talking a lot. Just sometimes from your actions, you can inspire other people to get into exercise. And it's a huge well-being aspect for family and friends alike. Then we come, looking at on the opinions, and there's loads of experts out there, but listen to all, take bits and pieces in that you want. I think I touched on the marginal gains. Obviously Bradley Wiggins has the fallout with Brailsford, and he says it's rubbish now, but marginal gains helped him win a lot of gold medals. So as we talked about here, all these little bits I've been talking about, to try and put that into your preparation, in your planning. Because it will help you. All the little bits, they all add up. So I probably talked just about enough. I think the last one I was going to touch on, which is massive area, was looking at nutrition. So you look at diet. Again, it's all individual. There's no set laws in terms of what you should eat. Hydration's vital. But again, I know people who don't hydrate that much and they get away with it. Supplements are never ending, but it's individual to you. You need to try them all out, and look at your beliefs. Look at what you're happy eating. You can go and get analysed closer. Nutritionists, dietitians. What are you deficient in? Most female endurance athletes are deficient in iron. So should they be supplementing their diet with more iron? And that doesn't need to be through eating meat. There's other more natural ways to improve your iron content. A lot of men can be overproductive in terms of iron, but you need to go and analyse that. So going back to if you're feeling tired, sleepy, look into see there might be something in your diet. You get loads of allergens and anaphylaxis aspects. So nutrition, diet, supplements, massive area. It's just bringing it up that I've learned so much. Probably the biggest one I learned was pasta parties. For me, a load of rubbish. Just ate way too much. So most of my first endurance events, I was bloated. Ate too much the night before, too much the morning, and didn't perform as well. But again, it's different for everyone. So hopefully touched on some areas that will give you some kind of good aspects in terms of improving your preparation, but just always be learning. Like I say, I've worked as a physio over 20 years now. I've been doing endurance events that time, and I still know very little, but I think that 20 years I've hopefully passed on some tonight. It's maybe more difficult when I'm talking myself, but like I say, I don't think there was any questions. So people can always come into the shop and question if you want to book an appointment. Everything's online on the website, but I've probably talked enough for tonight. So hopefully everyone stays safe, stays well, and keep exercising and doing what you enjoy. But if you prepare for it, you should have much better benefits, and you'll perform better and you'll avoid injury. Okay, bye for now.